U.S. futures rising after the White House said its spat with China is on hold for now.
We're putting the trade war on hold. So right now we have agreed to put the tariffs on hold while we try to execute the framework. The president has been very clear since the first meeting with President Xi in Mar-a-Lago that we are going to reduce the trade deficit. We have an agreement with China that they will substantially agree to it.
Well, that was the Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin speaking over the weekend. President Trump over the years has been critical of Chinese trade policies, saying they're unfair for America. So how long will the trade truce actually last? Well, joining us now is Emma O'Brien, Bloomberg's China editor in Beijing, and Kevin Cirilli. He's our chief Washington correspondent in D.C. Emma, first of all, what do we know that both parties actually could offer?
Well, there's a lot of speculation about that. I think, as you said, that nobody regards this as an end to the trade war, but just as a pause, and that there's probably a lot of moving and dealing in the background as to what China could buy more of. Those very vague commitments in the statement, what could back them up? Commodities is one thing that's been bandied about quite strongly. We're talking soybeans. China already the biggest buyer of U.S. soybeans, to energy, to even LNG.
Emma, when I look at Chinese renminbi, when does it give way? I mean, it's completely managed. I understand that. Give us an update on how they are managing the Chinese currency.
Well, the currency has been a little bit loosened, I would say, over the past year. They are trying to allow market movements to influence it a little more. That was helped by the fact that it was strengthening quite strongly into last year with the dollar falling out of bed. But now that the dollar is coming back, that's a bit of a test to the regime as the renminbi does come off a bit and weaken. It's a test to that commitment to make it a little bit more market reliant and moving by the market. But so far, it does seem as if they are allowing that to happen, though within their very tight framework with the fixing and all that sort of stuff every day.
Okay, Kevin, what do we know from the U.S. administration side? Is it going to be very difficult for President Trump to go back and say, actually, now we've sorted our differences with China, given, how much he's beat up on them?
Sort of their differences at all. I would agree with Emma. I think that this is just very much a pause, Francine, in terms of the back and forth bilateral talks. And I would also note the role that the North Korea summit on June 12th in Singapore might potentially play in all of this. Look, there's no question that there's the U.S.-China negotiations, but then we're just ahead of a June 1st deadline that the president has said would be looming over for regards to whether or not he wants to make permanent the steel and aluminum tariff increases for Mexico and Canada for NAFTA. And so they're hanging in the ballot for on one hand, and then you've got this pause of sorts with U.S. and China.